Well, after being told about the Action Research Project, my first thought was, how am I going to be able to do a project without a classroom of my own to do it in? I mean, the thought of asking a local school to allow me to experiment in a strange class didn't appeal to me. But neither did a thesis. So I sort of put the ARP on the back burner for a while. But as time flew by, while working 2 jobs and doing my regular coursework, I knew I needed to come up with something. So one day it kind of hit me. It kind of all came together. I had been I'd been thinking about the stuff I learned in the multiple intelligence course. I'd been reflecting on what kind of learner I was and what kind of learners my kids were. And that got me to thinking about my daughter Allison, who is deaf. She's primarily a visual learner since she has no sense of hearing. And my wife and I had often been speaking of, hey, we really need to learn more ASL here at home. And so I came up with the idea of a website for families who have a deaf child or a deaf member, so that they could learn as a way to learn sign on the internet. And after a little research, just initial research, I found out only about 27% of deaf children have meaningful interaction at home due to the lack of signing in the home. And I thought, no matter how many PhDs get together and study something like this, it's really, in the end, it's up to the parents to take on that responsibility of learning ASL at home. So I finally thought I had a good idea, and I thought, well, heck, this will satisfy my academic requirement and make a real difference here at home in my family with Allison's interaction with everybody. And with the emerging social networking technologies nowadays on Web 2.0, I thought this could be shared rather quickly when compared to the ancient days of email. The next questions that came out were like, well, what kind of videos should I make? How do I capture certain things on film that are educational? What are Allison and her siblings really capable of learning by making a video? For answers to these questions, I had to consult with Fred. Fred's one of my alter egos. Seems just like yesterday.
Yeah, I remember that. I told old Donald, now look, you done took that filmmaking course from, what's her name, Kathy Craven, okay? And you can put that stuff that you learned with her and sort of combine it and fuse it together in your brain with the stuff that you learned from multiple intelligences, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then he also asked me about music for the videos, and I said that it was probably a good idea to add some loops from GarageBand in there, because that stuff don't got no lyrics, right? And those lyrics, stuff with lyrics can distract the learner from the focus of the movie, right? Lisa Smith taught us that. And I also told him it was important. You got to put the right loop with the right scene to better engage the learner, you know what I mean?
As I did more research, I found several websites out there that are visual dictionaries. They're very accurate and they're very extensive vocabularies in signing that anybody can learn for free. And I had thought of creating something similar when I was first conceiving my idea, but it had already been done. And I knew I needed to focus in on Allison and our family. And I also knew that whatever I would end up doing on the website would need to be kid-friendly and engaging for the whole family. So simply showing myself with a sign, giving a sign with a plain background would be kind of boring, uninteresting, dull. See what I mean? I wanted it to be something like what you would see in an old electric company show or one of those shows from PBS. In fact, my wife told me after we made the first initial videos for the experiment that they reminded her of Sesame Street, which is kind of what I wanted, just, without the puppets. And as preparations were being prepared for making the first video, I had to really think in very simple, basic terms about how we learn, and more importantly, how we communicate and use language. And years ago, it had occurred to me that words are nothing more than symbols. They don't really exist. At that point, I knew I needed to consult with another one of my alter egos. Truth be told, he's not one of my most favorite people in the world. Tends to ramble on a bit. We live in a world of symbols. We communicate by using written symbols that match certain sounds. For example, this symbol represents the sound A or A, okay? And symbols like these are called letters. Now, these letters are often combined to form more complex symbols called words, and the words are then formed into sentences, and sentences are formed into paragraphs. So basically, the main way we get thoughts and ideas from one person's brain to another's is by making sounds with our mouths. And other people recognize those sounds. We start learning these sounds almost immediately from the time we are born. And as we get older, we gradually learn the written symbols. Some people are born with a little sense of hearing or no sense of hearing. This is a condition called deafness or hearing impaired. And since deaf people can't hear sounds, they must use a different set of symbols altogether. Sign language. They use hand gestures in place of the sounds. And that way they can communicate their thoughts and ideas to each other that way. And they're very proficient at it. I found research in the US and abroad about how technology is being used in deaf education. This seems to be a universal topic. People in deaf education all over the world are trying to integrate technology into their schools because it's so visual. Video conferencing is being utilized to teach sign in rural areas. Computers and smart boards are being used a lot more in deaf classrooms because of their visual applications. As far as I know, what I set out to do is new, and although deaf educators have used video in the classroom a lot, I'm sure, using it the way I have in a family setting, I think is probably pretty rare.
I think this could have a bipolar effect on the research community. On one hand, deaf educators and researchers might appreciate seeing a family-oriented project like this. On the other hand, some could very well say that, oh, he's biased. He's the dad. I mean, there's no real measurement here. There's no, it's all too subjective. It's all too qualitative. Well, I'm okay with both hands. I really don't care what impact it may or may not have as a contribution. I just know that my kids love doing it, and it's effective for them. And we plan on making more videos as Allison gets older. I don't think that my professional future lies in education anymore, at least not in a classroom. As far as our future as a family is concerned, though, it's very bright. This project has empowered us to know that we can do something to improve our situation so that Allison can interact better at home, so that we can all learn more sign language. And that's been worthwhile more than anything.